I welcome you one and all to the series. Our reference text is Genesis chapter 16 from verse 1 to 6. It talks about Sarah, the wife of Abraham, proposing to the husband that he sleeps with the maidservant Hagar so that she will conceive and bear him a son. This move by Sarah was occasioned by her inability to conceive her own son. Surprisingly, Abraham agreed and went ahead with the plan. The maidservant, realizing that she was pregnant, began to treat her madam with contempt. When Sarah complained about this, Abraham gave her the power to do whatever she wanted to do with the maidservant. She then began to maltreat her until Hagar finally had to run away. The theme for our reflection is discernment in moments of crisis. This story definitely sounds very interesting, and I think it has a lot of lessons for families today. And I wish to share 5 points. The first point is the reality of waiting. Waiting is always a difficult thing to do. We can all attest to the different moments when we had to wait for one thing or another. For instance, for that particular job opportunity, or for that marriage, or for healing, or for that particular breakthrough. The truth is that whenever we have to wait for that which we consider to be precious, and it does not come according to our timelines, anxiety sets in. This we know can be very uncomfortable. For Sarah to have waited for all these years and yet no child was catastrophic. In those days, just like in some cultures today, a woman without a child was perceived as one who was cursed. Can we therefore imagine the psychological, the emotional, and the spiritual burden she was carrying? The suggestion, therefore, that the husband sleeps with the maidservant should tell us how desperate she was. She had, in fact, reached her wit's end. She had fallen into despair. She has given up on the hope of having her own child. The question is, in our moments of waiting, have we also fallen into despair? It's important we acknowledge that waiting can be traumatizing. 2, family members and friends. The consciousness about the reality of waiting with its corresponding problems which couples face should make us spare them the unnecessary pressure. Instances where family members or friends will ask couples about when they hope to have children, as if suggest that they had the power to do so at any time, should stop. It's important we don't add to their burden by passing unnecessary comments or remarks. 3, the reality of anxiety. Waiting is always followed by anxiety. Once it is not checked from the beginning or worked upon, it will defeat us before we become aware of it. Anxiety is real. Sarah could not conquer her anxiety, hence the suggestion that the husband sleeps with the maidservant. What are the fears in our families? What are the fears in our relationships? What are the fears in our marriages? The way to victory is to identify and name them. 4, the question mark on the plan. The question is, did Sarah's option for surrogate motherhood solve her problem? No. It rather compounded the problems of the family. She thought that by the maidservant having a child for the family, it will ease the pains and the burdens of the family, but it did not. The truth is that in moments of crisis, a lot of ideas may run through our minds. We may be hearing many voices, and it is possible that some of these voices may be the voice of family members who mean no harm, or friends who want the best for us. But the question is whether what is being suggested is consistent with the will of God or God's plan for us. From the story, we must tread with caution when it comes to human ideas which are inconsistent with the divine plan. It is also worth noting that the culture at the time allowed for surrogate motherhood. This may explain why Sarah made the recommendation. But this was not the plan of God for them. They went ahead of God. Let us therefore be aware of what society promotes today as ways of helping couples have their own children. It is not everything that society approves of that we must embrace. Once there are ethical and moral concerns, we must be careful. If not, we may not be able to cope with the complications of our choices. 5. Need for discernment in times of crisis. From the book of the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 6, verse 16, it says that at the crossroad, stop and ask for the ancient path which is good, and walk on it. Then you will find rest for your souls. This is a call for discernment. We need to discern among the various options and allow faith to guide us. This, I know, may not be easy. But once we are conscious of the complications if we went our own way, then we are better off when God's will is done. God promised Abraham in chapter 15 that he will have his own son, but human weakness made him and the wife to go ahead of God. The maidservant, upon realizing that she was pregnant, became disrespectful. The home of Abraham did not know peace. Going ahead of God always brings disaster. In the midst of the many or the different voices, there is always the need to discern the voice of God or the will of God. This is the only way to experience true peace. To conclude, waiting for that which we earnestly desire can be very troubling. Anxiety can set in if not checked. Conscious of the truth that going ahead of the demands of our faith may compound issues, it is always in our best interest to discern the will of God. This is what guarantees peace of mind and harmony in the family. God bless you.